Good morning. My name is Karen Lindebricke, and I serve on the board here at DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church. I welcome everyone to our service this morning and welcome visitors to our open and inclusive community of faith. As Unitarian Universalists, we hold that there are many spiritual paths to truth and to meaning, and we support one another as we each explore these paths. I would like to especially welcome our guests and welcome again those who have visited us before. Visitors, it is the custom of our congregation to invite you to stand and give your name and where you are from, if you feel comfortable in doing so. Are there any visitors this morning who would like to introduce themselves?
Well, my name is Pastor Khalid London, and this is my wife, Ada London, and we're not guests here. We've been here before, and we like being around you all, so come back.
Well, welcome. Welcome. We welcome everyone who is visiting us today. Please join us after the service for coffee hour. We'd love to have a chance to get to know you better. Our minister, Reverend Tom Capo, and our congregational life coordinator, Mary Law, and all of our members are eager to meet you. Please feel free to approach anyone with a green cup, and you can ask any questions that you might have. Our service can be heard outside the glass doors in the back of the sanctuary should anybody feel the need to leave the service for any reason. There are chairs provided for your convenience. Please refer to the inserts in the order of service. For further announcements, as we begin our service, please silence all electronic devices. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to bring up Jenny Hobbs, and she's going to share with us some good news about the auction.
Thank you. My name is Jenny Hobbs, and I am delighted to co-chair the auction committee. And with me is Lindy Spreetsma and Anna Harcherik, also on the committee. Yes. Kelly Huggins was with me this morning, and she is our other co-chair. As the volunteer coordinator, I wanted to start by thanking Kelly and Anna and Lindy for just the extraordinary amount of work that they put in on the auction. It wouldn't be possible without you guys, so thank you. I know, thank you. And Kelly as well. And I don't know if everyone knows this, but the volunteers for the auction, we had over 50 volunteers to make the auction possible. So those are people that helped organize and label donations, set up the rooms, carry tables, serve food, clean up the kitchen, move things around, coordinate things for the children. It would not be possible without all of the help of all of those volunteers. So thank you for everyone that volunteered. I really appreciate it. Thank you. A special thank you to Cindy Wunderlich, who is an auction volunteer, but who also helps us out tremendously with the financials. It's sometimes difficult to untangle everything at the end, and we wouldn't always be able to do that without people that are really great with numbers. So thank you, Cindy, and Chris Cable as well, as the trustee that helps us sort out, I think it's trustee, is that the right word? Sorry, the guy that helps us, treasurer, thank you, sort out all of that stuff at the end. So what we'd like to share with you today, and what we're very excited to share, is that the total revenue for our 2017 goods and services auction was $38,744. That was, thank you, raised for our church, and that is even more exciting, $6,495 over the expected amount raised. So thank you. So it was not, would not happen if people didn't donate items and parties and events and tours and workshops. So thank you to everyone who donated. Thank you to everyone who bid and gave so generously, and thank you to everyone who made it happen. So it's a great community. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dean Reschke, and many of us in this room feel that music is something that helps us most connect with our own passion and our own soul. And today's a very special day because 30 years ago, Bonnie Brewster, a young, accomplished, and I would say well-trained musician, auditioned for our then minister, Kendall Gibbons. Bonnie, why don't you come on up here? And before apparently before the audition and interview was over, they asked her to sign on the dotted line, and she's been with us ever since. And I think that all of you share with me a sentiment with Bonnie that she's really added a lot all these 30 years, and her dedication and service to this community is something that we cherish deeply. So Bonnie, on behalf of the congregation, we would like to thank you very much for your 30 years of service here.
Today, we light this chalice for our third principle, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations.
Today is new member recognition, and as I call your names, would you please come up and we'll begin our ceremony. Chris Smith, Kate Swinford, Jamie Smith, Sarah Havel, Kevin Parnell, and Renee Barney.
We are grateful today for each of you that you have found your way here, that Good morning. Whew. Well, last time I was up here like at 9:30, it was snowing, and that's not snowing now. I am Reverend Tom Capo, minister here at DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church. And before we do anything else, I want to honor our veterans. So if you are a veteran, would you please stand? Have any veterans here this morning? Thank you. Thank you for your service. Now I'd like to introduce Sadia Covert. She's back behind me here. Sadia is the executive director and founder of UCare, a nonprofit that unites communities together through mutual respect and understanding. She is an attorney and managing partner at Covert & Covert LLP and a state-certified law enforcement instructor. Sadia co-authored House Bill 2390, a hate crime legislation, which was unanimously passed this summer. And I want to thank you for joining us here today. So, thank you all for joining us here today, because I think what you'll hear from Sadia this morning will give you a sense of what it is to be humble in a chaotic world. Being humble doesn't mean sitting back or being paralyzed by all the issues we're facing in this state and this country. It means facing the issues, speaking truth to power, making a difference in the world with a humble heart, a calm spirit, and with compassion and the transforming power of love. And so I want to offer some words this morning to open our service by American Catholic writer, theologian, and mystic Thomas Merton. Now, I want you to keep in mind that these words were written in 1966. We are living in the greatest revolution in history, a huge, spontaneous upheaval of the entire human race. Not a revolution planned and carried out by any particular party, race, or nation, but a deep, elemental boiling over of all the inner contradictions that we all have within. A revolution of the chaotic forces inside us. This is not something that we have chosen, nor is it something we are free to avoid.
I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join me in saying our mission statement, which is printed in your order of service and projected to your left. And please remain standing for our first hymn. We gather as an inclusive community to grow in character, mind, and spirit, and to transform the world toward fairness, love, and compassion. Let us join together and sing hymn number 170 in the gray hymnal, We Are a Gentle, Angry People. The words will be projected to your left.
Good morning, everybody. Do you guys feel that the same energy that I do in this room? Isn't it amazing? This service was so beautiful. I'm not even a member of this church, but I felt so loved and included right up here. I want to thank Reverend Capo for inviting me here. It is truly an honor to be with such a fantastic group this morning. And I wouldn't be anywhere else, honestly. I just love the energy in this room. Reverend Capo and I met a few years ago, and he is amazing. He let me have a Ramadan dinner over here, gave his space here to us, welcomed us all. He was also at one of our rallies that I had for a hate crime-related incident and spoke beautifully. So I want to introduce myself. My name is Sadia Covert. And Reverend Capo actually gave my introduction before. But I wanted to share my story with you here today. I had a wake-up call in 2014, a few years ago, with a few incidents that happened that really hit close to home. There was a hate crime incident at Etzheim Synagogue. to our Jewish brothers and sisters in Lombard. Now, the community was devastated, not only their community, but other communities as well, because it showed that there still are people who hate. That didn't resonate with me. There's still people that hated others for being who they were, for their religious belief, or whatever the case may be. Fast forward a little bit, 3 months later, there was another hate crime incident that was not labeled as a hate crime. It was labeled as a parking dispute. In North Carolina, there were 3 young Muslim dental students that were shot execution style on their knees by a man, or should I say a coward, that did not like the way they looked. Two of the kids were newlyweds. So that was really, really sad. 2 months later, 2 or 3 months later, there was another incident down in the South. It didn't make it on national news, but there was an African-American man hung by a tree, from a tree. These incidents continue to happen. They didn't make national news, but they were in local news. And I was sitting there venting and complaining on Facebook, because that's all I thought that's all I could do, just vent and complain on Facebook. But I decided to stop being an armchair activist. I wanted to do something about it. Instead of complaining about it, I wanted to go out there and do something. So I decided, I was so passionate, I was like, oh, I want to have a protest against these hate crimes. Let's go to downtown Chicago and have a big protest and rally everybody. Well, I couldn't get a permit, so couldn't go that route. So I went the academic way, and I held my first hate crime symposium at Benedictine University. And it went great. I invited people from different communities to come together, and we had a panel to talk about how hate affected different communities, and it affected everybody differently. And I noticed that hate doesn't discriminate. Everybody could be hated, anybody. It doesn't matter whether you're black, white, gay, Jewish, it doesn't matter. There are people out there that hate. So after the symposium, and after doing my research of why do we have a hate crime problem, why is there underreporting of hate crime issues, what's going on, and how can I be a part of that solution? So my husband, who's also an attorney, and I started researching. And we noticed that it's really hard to prove a hate crime, and the previous hate crime law was vague. It didn't really help police officers a whole lot in identifying what a hate crime was. A lot of people weren't reporting it, so there was a lot of skewed statistics in that area, and we weren't really getting an accurate count of what was going on. So I figured it just needs a little bit of a tweaking. That's all, just a couple of fixes here and there. So we drafted the amendment, and I put together a whole packet of all of my research, and I developed a program called Fight Hate with ATE, ATE, Amend, Train, and Educate. So first I was gonna amend the law, and then I was gonna train police officers and prosecutors on this new amended law. And the third portion was to educate the public about diversity and unite communities together by increasing awareness about one another. Now, the education portion I was planning to do anyway, regardless of whether the hate crime law would be amended or not, because that's very important, and people just knowing. Hate is not something that people are born with. It is learned. And if it is learned, we can unlearn it. So I put together my packet, and I went to a state representative, I'm not going to identify, and he or she went into their office, presented my case. I was very happy that I got a meeting, but you know what they said to me? They said, okay, that's great, we'll give you a call As in, that's cute. Good idea. We'll give you a call. Well, they didn't give me a call. So I called one time, and then I called again. Then I called again. And they said, that's a great idea. Nothing happened. So I moved on. And I continued to have my rallies and collecting petition signatures and making noise about how we need to do something about this. And everybody was on board. And I just continued to go from lawmaker to lawmaker, asking who would be interested in sponsoring this amendment. And guess what? Somebody finally listened. A couple people, actually. And those couple people grew into a few people. And those few grew into several people, and pretty soon, I had a hearing in Springfield for the amendment. And you want to know the shocking part, who objected to my hate crime amendment? I'm not going to say who, but what the objection was. We can't support your hate crime amendment because if this hate crime amendment protects the gays, we can't support it. As if the gays are not human, right? That was really disheartening. But nobody listened to them, thankfully. So these several people grew into hundreds of people, and this amendment was passed on the floor unanimously. Both Democrats and Republicans came together. Thank you. The governor signed it into law this summer, and it will be new effective law as of January 1st, 2018. So what am I doing right now? Am I done? No, I'm not done because I haven't saved the world yet. So what am I doing right now? I founded a nonprofit organization called UCare. It stands for Uniting Through Cultural Awareness and Regional Education. What we do is we unite communities together by building awareness and building relationships. We do diversity education and raise awareness about all different groups, not just minority groups, all groups. So if you're a human being, doesn't matter who you are, you have a platform and you are a part of this group. Because that is how we're going to reduce hate and bigotry out there. That's how we're going to reduce ignorance. It doesn't even have to be hate. It doesn't have to be bigotry. It could just be a lack of awareness, a lack of education on certain groups of people. So we are doing very well in that area. And I'm also a state certified police instructor. I have been training hundreds of police officers for the last 4 or 5 years in diversity. And I also work with police in improving relations between communities and building bridges of trust and understanding between police and different communities. And we've been doing very well in DuPage County. I sit on a board of Unity Partnership, and that's exactly what we do. We just build relationship of trust. And you know, you'd be surprised, like I go out there, I see a lot of people disheartened by police officers, but honestly, they're just trying to do their job. And they come to me and they're like, Sadia, how can we help other communities? What can we do? Please, we want to reach out. And there's a lot of negative news stories out there, but our DuPage County police officers are amazing, and I respect all the work that they do. So I continue my work in uniting communities. I want to bring balance to the world, to our own local community. Recently, I had this crazy idea, right, that I could take my skills, my God-given skills, right, and maybe, I don't know, run for office. So I decided to run for DuPage County Board, yes. My dad, you know, my inspiration comes from my dad and also what he taught me as a Muslim person. And I went to Sunday school all my life. My dad was my Sunday school teacher, and, well, he kind of still is my Sunday school teacher. But, he taught me that what Islam teaches is that you work for all of humanity, not just for your own group of people. You work for everybody out there because God created everybody, right? So that is what I'm doing. There's a prophetic tradition that he taught me. He said, when you see something wrong, you try to stop it in 3 ways. You try to stop it with your hand first, and if you can't stop it with your hand, you try to stop it with your tongue. And if you can't stop it with your tongue, you try to at least feel bad about it, have a little bit of compassion. And that's what I decided to do. That's my driving force. And I will not stop till my last breath. So I wanted to let you guys know that all that I did was, it took a lot. It took 3 things, which is really important. It took persistence, passion, and most importantly, patience. And I noticed that our country, our legislators do listen. They do listen. And ordinary people like me could do all this. I do have hope in our civic institutions. I have hope in Illinois. We live in an amazing country, because when you look at other countries out there, our country is truly, truly amazing. So I want to leave you with this. I know it's cliched, but be the change you want to see in the world. And whatever your goals are or whatever your passions are, go for it. And don't let anybody tell you that you're cute and good job, okay? Do it. Thank you so much. You guys have been wonderful.
I offer now a meditation, which was adapted from one written by Reverend Kendall Gibbons. Kendall was the minister here at this church from 1983 to 1998. So I invite you to a time of prayer or meditation. Each of us has our own way of entering that space. You might sit up straight, put your hands in your lap, maybe let your eyes close. Take a deep, slow breath and embrace the silence between the words. For all of you who join your journey to ours in this community, whether you've been here a day, a week, or many, many years, be assured that none of us knows all the answers to the largest questions of our existence. You join in a community of doubt, discovery, and unfolding truth. We do know that the gifts of life are given most richly to those who embrace the world with gratitude, who do share their share of humanity's work cheerfully and with a humble heart, who cherish beauty and simplicity, and who approach their fellow beings with compassion, patience, and generosity. We do know that we are called upon to act with integrity and to do good to others, even when we are weary or in need or misunderstood. We do know that you must cultivate your heart and educate your conscience, for in the end you must trust your conscience and give and receive love from this community. Know that you, each and all, are precious to us, and we wish for you all happiness. We would have you know that our blessing and care go with you on your journeys, and we promise you our steadfast friendship and support. We are grateful for each and every one of you and for this community. So may it always be. Amen. have such good music here. And again, I want to thank Sadia for joining us and sharing her journey. She accomplished so much with passion, with the persistence to work hard, and the ability to connect with others. You know, she used her relationships, shared her vision, and accomplished something wonderful. Her heart for this work came from a desire to make this world a better place for all those who've experienced prejudice, hate, violence, and to create an equitable framework so that those who use hate to justify their actions will be subject to justice commensurate with their actions. And yet, she remains humble amidst all this chaos. Humble. What does that mean? Freedom from pride or arrogance, a modest or low view of oneself or one's importance, being courteous or respectful. Certainly these are some of the definitions of humble. But I say to you, in the midst of all this chaos, stay humble and compassionate. And when I ask you to do that, when I ask you to stay humble, that word comes with some baggage. Do you reject this concept because it has a sense of meaning that you are somehow less important than someone else? Do you feel that if you speak calmly, no one will understand the passion that you feel about something? Or perhaps even hear you through the raucous shouts of those who hate? I've thought a lot about humility lately, and I turned to a friend of mine, and she mentioned this tradition in the Jewish community of combining humility and social justice. So I went on the web and I found on this site, aish.com, A-I-S-H. It's a Jewish content website. And so they have these weekly teachings there. And I read this one, and I want to share it with you this morning. This week's portion says, a Jewish king is commanded to write for himself a Torah scroll and carry it with him at all times. This is in Deuteronomy. And here's that passage from Deuteronomy. Here's, you shall appoint judges and officials throughout your tribes in all your towns that the Lord your God is giving you. They shall render just decisions for the people. You must not distort justice. You must not show partiality. You must not accept bribes, for a bribe blinds the eye of the wise and subverts the cause of those who are in the right. Justice, and only justice you shall pursue, so that you may live and occupy the lands that the Lord has given you. The idea is the king needs to maintain perspective. He should remember just where his power comes from and not make the mistake of thinking that he is in control. In the Jewish thinking, arrogance is the worst of all traits. And the greatest of all people they see as Moses, who is singled out as the most humble of all men. The post goes on to describe humility this way. Humility does not mean lack of self-esteem. It does not mean self-denigration. Humility in Judaism is a recognition that there are more important things in the world than just my own desires and needs. Humility is a matter of perspective. Talented and capable as I may be, I am nevertheless only a small part of a vast universe. The humble person realizes what's really right is infinitely more valuable than serving oneself. If you have humility, then living with what you believe is right is more important than what others think of you. A humble person is unaffected by social pressures, unmoved by social norms. Indeed, humility is the foundation of true independence. Arrogance is the fast track to mediocrity. Humility, on the other hand, paves the way for greatness. So what does all this humility and social action stuff have to do with Unitarian Universalism? Well, I can only speak of it from my own personal experience. I can only speak of it for myself, ultimately. But I want to share a story with you about something that really touched me this week that helped me get some grounding on this. As some of you know, I'm now on the board of the Council of Religious Leaders of Metropolitan Chicago. We had a meeting the other night where we were recognizing organizations and people that are doing great things for this area. At the meeting, I met Jane Carney, Director of Domestic Affairs for the Jewish Community Relations Council. We started talking about justice work and discovered that we both ground our justice work in understanding that all people must be treated with compassion. And that it's easy to lose sight of that grounding when there are so many issues of abuse and hate in our world. And we found ourselves talking about how we get caught up in this whirlwind of so many things needing to be done to fight injustice that it's easy to lose sight of our common humanity and our connection. She said she grounds herself, one of the ways that she grounds herself in this work is by going to the Illinois Holocaust Museum and Education Center in Skokie. She describes going through the museum and facing the visual and emotional darkness of the Holocaust, viscerally experiencing the harm people are capable of doing to one another. And she says at the end of the museum tour, I guess it is, you emerge out into the light, which she experiences as a reinforcement of the possibility and hope of humanity and her personal connection with humanity. This tour of this museum that she does from time to time helps her feel grounded, that she is part of all of us, and that is the most important thing to base her social justice work on. It's easy to become lost, to lose sight in this justice work. We can become task-oriented. You know, it's like stringing beads on a long wire. If we only focus on which bead comes next, the next issue we have to face, the next action we have to take, we lose perspective. We never step back. We get burned out. Even forget the reason we started doing the justice work in the first place. And we need to see, and we need to know we've made progress. So often we can get disappointed because we don't step back and see the progress that we've made. And we as Unitarian Universalists pride ourselves, maybe that's the wrong word, in doing social justice work. And so there's a passage I often read from UU minister and humanist Reverend Richard Gilbert that helps ground me in this work, helps me stay humble. The passage goes, in short, life is our only chance to grow a soul and repair the world. We cannot do one without the other. Ultimately, mystic and prophet should be one. You know, we tend to think of our spiritual lives as private, the personal, the untouchable, the place inside where we gain our strength. And our social responsibility, our social work, on the other hand, is very public, what we do in the world. But it is inside us, in our heart, our soul, our spirit, that we overcome our narcissism, our preoccupation with ourselves. The deeper we delve into the innermost recesses of our souls, the more intensely we identify with other human beings, the more we see our common humanity, the more we are grounded and motivated to do the work of repairing the world. Social justice work is, or can be, for all of us, simply a natural spiritual evolution. Mystical and militant inclinations need one another. Social justice has so much centrifugal force, it needs the balance of the centripetal force of inward spiritual experience to bring us back to the center so that we can be whole in this work. It is my belief that Unitarian Universalists are called to be mystical militants, ethical warriors, humble justice seekers. Now, this may seem like a juxtaposition of states of being that barely align together, with an ongoing potential of spinning out of control and going down in flames. But it's not a static sense of being. There's a tension in that in and out. The centripetal and centrifugal forces of in and out. And Unitarian Universalists are great multitaskers, so we should be able to do that. Keeping those two states aligned as we do this work. And understanding there's tension as we go in and go out. But I believe there's energy in that tension. And so as we string those beads, we gain the energy from the inside and from the outside, so that we can continue the justice work one bead at a time for as long as it takes. I want to share with you one final quote this morning from Unitarian and Congregational Minister David Rice Williams. He said, we are joined together by mystical oneness, a mystical oneness whose source we may never know, but whose reality we can never doubt. And the mystical oneness has been glimpsed by nearly all great seers and leaders of humanity. And here's what that is, that oneness that he speaks. We are our neighbor's keeper, because that neighbor is our larger self, humanity. Behold, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, because thy neighbor is thyself. Namaste.
UU Minister Arthur Foote said, "To the service of truth and the increase of righteousness, we dedicate our lives and this our offering." The offering for the work of this church will now be given and received.
And now we extinguish our chalice, but let us carry its flame in our hearts, reminding us of our third principle, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. I invite you now to rise in body or spirit, and let's end with our hymn, Building a New Way. Put a lot of energy into this, folks. It's a great hymn, 1017. These are pictures of our church members at January's Women's March in Chicago and Washington, D.C. Woo! My friends, a deep elemental boiling over is occurring in our world of the inner contradictions that have ever been. A revelation of the chaotic forces inside everyone. This is not something we have chosen, nor is it something we can feel free to avoid. And from what I see here at DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church, we are stepping out of our comfort zones to humbly speak truth to power in these chaotic times. Keep up the good work, everybody. Woo! Now I invite you to turn around and greet one another. Let us share the love in this community.